Well, this one has certainly been a long time coming because I may have skipped over quite a lot of people because, in terms of just people I haven't covered or people who need a little bit more of a proper revision, absolutely Flutter sort of ranks at the very top. And even at this stage of the proceedings, Flutter stands head and shoulders, not just being perhaps the single most recent player, if you will, for the Chris Chan story, but she remains probably the most ambiguous of them all because nobody has any idea who she is and nobody has any real idea what exactly is going on. It might be for the very first time in Chris's entire life where nobody knows what's going on. Chris might be ultimately unknowable. But before we jump to conclusions, let's get the record straight, mostly because of what we don't know or we can only guess. Note on misinformation. This article was previously included information that was primarily speculative or incorrect. This has since been fixed. You can hence why I wanted to revise this topic. Also, it has been found that the subject of this article has been a frequent subject of impersonation from trolls/weens. Bear this in mind and be cautious of any accounts claiming to be them. Also, ongoing. The things described in this article are still happening, or are still being looked into. As a result, it may be subject to frequent change and the information provided may not be entirely reliable. Pro tip. Should you encounter Flutter in public, with or without Chris, do not harass her. Getting a discreet picture is fine if you're able to, but don't directly interact with her or Chris. Once you make yourself a part of Christery, there is no escaping from it. Also, it has not been confirmed that Flutter is dating Chris, or if she has a romantic relationship with him. So, we first move into Chris's adapt description of her. She's a friend of mine, and I do refer to her only as Flutter, because she likes Fluttershy, okay? I met her in Lynchburg, Virginia. She got in touch with me while I was in jail, and we managed to meet. We managed to bond and connect with each other as friends, and she is literally 30 years old, despite her physicality. Flutter, born either in 1992 or 1993, is the nickname Chris gave to a female friend of his. Flutter reached out to Chris at some point during his time in Central Virginia Regional Jail, sometime after Chris was released in March of 2023. He met up with her in the city of Lynchburg, Virginia, and they began hanging out together. Chris was referred to her simply as a friend, suggesting that their relationship is not romantic, although he does not explicitly deny having romantic feelings for her either. Chris also claims that she is 30 years old as of the 17th of October 2023, despite her childlike appearance. The nickname Flutter comes from her fondness for the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic character Fluttershy. After Chris's release from jail, he was frequently photographed by people who managed to spot him in public. In September of 2023, he was spotted with Flutter for the first time. On the 17th, she was spotted allegedly making out with Chris at a CVS, causing many people to believe she was his girlfriend. Otaku King also claimed that the two of them were a couple. In setting the record straight, there was never any sex involving me in 2021, however, Chris simply refers to her as a friend. Some of the observers have speculated that Flutter may be Finnish or of Finnish descent, noting that Chris began studying Finnish intensively on Duolingo since October of 2023, for no apparent reason. Which, yeah, that sounds very out of character. Like, when was the last time you ever saw Chris doing anything unless it was for any specific reason, i.e. he would get something out of it? This theory was bolstered by 2024 sightings of Chris and Flutter in Helsinki in Finland. how Chris was actually able to travel outside the United States, even though he was under the circumstances, is a very good question, let alone all the way to Helsinki. A Reddit user who saw Flutter claims she did not have an accent. Another Redditor claims that she spoke in a fake anime girl voice. Flutter's identity and motives remain one of the more mysterious aspects of modern Christery, with both Chris and Flutter herself seemingly unwilling to divulge any information about her, as well as a lack of any known social media presence. Most discussion regarding her has been purely speculative. This has allowed for the proliferation of numerous theories and rumours. Theories range from such things as Flutter being underage due to her youthful and diminutive appearance, being a recruit from Prater, meant to keep Chris in check, being an obscure Finnish locale, mostly unknown to Chris's primarily North American follower base, to even the possibility of being impregnated by Chris. Time will tell as to whether or not any of these, well, especially not the last one, questions end up being answered. But for now, Chris seems content maintaining his silence on the matter. Sightings. Now, for the sake of brevity, because we really are going to have to dig into semantics, I'll just very briefly go over these. Flutter is most well known for appearing many times for Chris following his release from jail, who is particularly notable due to his substantial decreased online presence. On the 4th of September, Chris was spotted talking with Flutter at a Coinster machine at a Food Lion supermarket. This was the first sight, and she was earned the nickname Food Lion Lady. On the 9th of September, a ween stalked Chris in his car. Reportedly, Flutter was in the car with Chris, and the ween remarked that she looked like a child. On the 16th, she was spotted with Chris at Walmart. This was the first clear view of her face. On the 17th, Chris was alleged sighting hugging, touching, and kissing Flutter at a CVS. On the 20th, the sighter posted 2 incredibly blurry pictures of Chris hugging and kissing her. While Chris is easy to see, Flutter is incredibly hard to see. The sighter also made multiple comments about her. Chris was all over that woman. She just kept touching her and had her hand on the back almost the whole time. She doesn't look young. She 100% looked uncomfortable. She seemed uncomfortable and kept her head down mostly. I can't say whether she was just uncomfortable or if she was low functioning. Seemed like he was kind of leading the shopping trip. He also was very close to her at all times. Co-worker asked if they need any help, and Chris made sure to step so that he was between my co-worker and the girl. She paid. These comments have yet to be confirmed as fact. Meanwhile, on the 19th, Chris supposedly walked into a game store with her. On the 1st of October, Chris was spotted showing something on his device to her at River Ridge Mall. This was the clearest view of her face yet until another photo shoot on Valentine's Day of 2025. On the 3rd of October, Flutter was seen waiting in a car while Chris was shopping at Game Junkies. On the 20th of December, at around 7:30 p.m, a video of her was taken at the Richmond International Airport. Her origin flight was from the Charlotte Douglas International Airport, but the standing destination is unknown. Later that day, she was spotted at a Sheetz in Henrico, Virginia, and afterwards driven away by Chris. On the 21st, Flutter and Chris was spotted at Isabella's Italian Trattoria restaurant in Lynchburg. Reddit user Jackson Starship speculated that Flutter paid for the meal, also noting that Chris ate spaghetti like a toddler. The user also reported that Chris hand-fed dessert to Flutter. Jackson Starship stated that Flutter did not appear mentally handicapped, nor did she appear an exceptionally young age. On several occasions, she would keep Chris in check, stopping him from escalating situations. They were last seen walking away together in the parking lot. On the 4th of January, Chris and Flutter were photographed at Ultimate Comics in Cary, North Carolina, while picking up tickets for the Animate Rally convention. They were seen in attendance together on the 5th of January 2024, with Flutter wearing a face mask. On the 6th... Hang on a minute, how did Chris manage to be allowed to go back into conventions because of what we... Okay, well, that doesn't make sense, does it? On the 6th of January 2024, Chris and Flutter were seen outside of the Animate convention, reportedly having been kicked out. Ah. Oh. I see. On the 23rd of March 2024, Chris was spotted with Flutter at a TJ Maxx in Lynchburg, Virginia, disproving rumours about her staying away from him due to the aftermath of Animate Rally. Chris also had plans to go to BabsCon 2024 with her, but his 2 tickets were refunded due to the event staffing being aware of his status on the internet. This is hinted at him in his reply to the BabsCon email. I was looking for an enjoyable, peaceful weekend with my friend that would have been made more than very good and beneficial. But no, you dare deny us this simple pleasure as Pegasisters of the Brony community. Sure, Chris. That's the reason why. On the 4th of April, Chris and Flutter were spotted at an Arabia shopping centre in Helsinki, Finland. On the 30th, Chris and Flutter were unwittingly recorded at Linnamäki in Helsinki. On the 29th of June, Chris and Flutter were spotted at River Ridge Mall, where they ate at a Chick-fil-A and went to see a movie. A few days later, on the 5th of July, they were seen together at a Walmart in Lynchburg. A week later, they were again seen shopping in Walmart, and the Reddit user watching them claimed that Flutter was speaking in a fake anime girl voice and that Chris was telling her how to bag food properly. A few days later, on July 16th, they were spotted on the road driving towards Charlottesville, with Flutter sitting in the back seat. On the 13th of August 2024, Chris and Flutter were spotted at River Ridge Mall, and about a week later, they were spotted again, this time in Roanoke at Valley View Mall. The observers photographed them several times and even secretly recorded a video of them approaching and talking to Chris, with Flutter being behind Chris, being silent, and leaves without her face being shown on the video. However, 2 days later, one of the observers posted another photo of them from the same sighting, which marked the first time Flutter's face had been photographed since October 2023. On the 22nd of August 2024, Chris and Flutter were spotted and photographed at a Goodwill in Lynchburg. On the 28th of September 2024, Chris and Flutter were spotted walking in the mall of Tripala in Helsinki, Finland. The observer recorded a brief clip of them walking together. On the 17th of December 2024, Chris and Flutter were seen at Reddy in Kalasatama in Helsinki, Finland. And on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day 2025, Chris and Flutter were spotted browsing in a pet store. Good Lord, Chris, please. Chris was gonna, well, better than kidnapping 3 stray kittens, I'll say that much, Chris. Maybe he's learned a little bit from last time. Also, before we move on from all of this, 2 things is that, first of all, God almighty, modern Christry hasn't gone down just because Chris stops posting on Blue Sky every 5 minutes. And second, if you want to buy a pet in America, you go to a pet shop. If you want to buy a pet shop, you go to a pet shop. And if you want to buy a pet shop, well, then you're just being silly. Wariness. Since late December of 2023, when Flutter returned to the spotlight, many people have joked about the inability of Weens to take a good photo of her. This has also led to speculation that she was trying to stay out of the spotlight of said Weens to avoid harassment, especially when observers noted her self-awareness at some events that she went to with Chris. The first strong signals of this came to light on December 20th, where she was noted by an observer to wear a face mask in public. Yes, I was on her flight. I noticed her almost immediately, but she wore a mask the whole time. It was subconscious, so I didn't think much of it other than, she looks familiar. But while she was leaving the airport, Chris was waiting for her. He embraced her and and said her name out loud. I was on the phone and couldn't make out what was said. When the said person approached them later, Chris was against him taking pictures of themselves. The same behaviour repeated a day later. As they walked out, Chris commented to a passing family, "A family night, that's nice," or something like that. And Egg had to pull him through the door. I asked Chris for a photo as he was walking out, and he got pissed. But I still shook Chris's hand. Wish I could have got better photos, but it was kind of a formal dinner. He has also stated Flutter didn't seem to be mentally handicapped and took on a near monthly role during the visit. Or a motherly role, I should say. Egg didn't say a word to me. I passed their table at 2 points. She wasn't noticeably mentally handicapped and seemed to be keeping Chris in check to some degree. During Animate's rally, Flutter was seen with all of her face covered up by a face mask, sunglasses, and her hair. Observers also noted her obsessive self-awareness at the event. I am legit annoyed that you people cannot be bothered to get one clear photo or video. How hard can it be? Genuinely, this has been more difficult than you'd imagine. Flutter appears to be quite vigilant and unwilling, obviously, to appear in anything, especially candids. With her proximity to Chris, it is not surprising there is a lack of high-def photos. I was legitimately right beside them on an escalator yesterday without realizing, and genuinely she is so hard to see. She has such self-awareness compared to Chris, it is insane. Now, this is just on basically Flutter staying vigilant and silent and, well, pretty much just keeping herself to herself. But then there's also Chris's silence, which is kind of bizarre considering that Chris can't keep a secret to save his life. But so why is he genuinely staying silent on stuff like this? When he first spoke about her shortly after returning to the internet, Chris only shared her nickname and the fact that she had reached out to him while he was incarcerated, and that they had met up in Lynchburg following his release. He did slip up when he meeting her at Richmond International Airport in 2023, but fortunately for her, Chris's shouting of her name is indistinct in the audio recording that was taken by an observer. In a May 2025 call with Ween, Chris was asked directly about Flutter and proceeded to lie about everything possibly related to her, including denying that he ever went to Finland with her or was learning Finnish on Duolingo. Instead, he claimed Flutter lives in Philadelphia and is going to college there, but was both unwilling and unable to provide any details when pressed further. He refused to give up her real name or even the first letter, even after being offered bribes of $50 to $150 and purchases from his Etsy store, stating simply, "Her name shall not be revealed." And for what they are worth, considering there's not too many of them, these are the actual photos of Flutter when she was with Chris. Animate Rally, and you can also see like the height differences will also give credence to the idea that she was quite a lot younger than some people suspected. Mind you, Chris is actually quite tall to give him credit, I guess. There's one here called Eat, which don't start encouraging Chris. The last thing Chris needs is more food, although he has started slimming down again since his release. And yeah, that's strange to say, but that is literally it. I know that may sound as though we're ending things on a damp squib, but you know what? Since last year, I think we know even less about Flutter. I would say this article has almost been completely untouched, despite the disclaimers and the notices and stuff like that. So, what can we take away from this? Because this is in the modern day of Christery, it would seem as though Chris, for whatever reason, whether it was court mandated or whether or not Chris was just found out the hard way about what happens when you spout nonsense on the internet with no repercussions. Or maybe it is also as a result of Chris finally being free from his the clutches of Barbara's influence. Either way, we have somehow moved out of those sort of doldrums, if you will, and we're sort of now into a stage of Christery where, for some strange reason, whatever as long as Chris is being kept out of trouble and Chris could just do his own fit. Chris, I'd say, fair enough, because the worst thing that could happen is if people started getting hurt as a result of this, and I'm glad to say, well, at least nobody's getting hurt out of this, so I can't really be angry or say anything else apart from fair enough. And with all that being said and done, because there's really not much else to add, I hope all of you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see all of you guys again next time. Thank you.